You're telling a story to a new friend. You're animated, you're excited, you're fully in it. And then you feel the energy shift. Your body tenses, your stomach drops, and suddenly you're up in your head, remembering all the times you've been told you're too loud, you're too intense, you're too sensitive. You cut the story short, you shrink a little, you add, sorry, I got excited. And now, instead of connecting with this new friend, you're making yourself smaller so you seem like you're not too much. Hey, I'm Dr. Regina PhD, and this is Divergent Paths, the podcast for late diagnosed neurodivergent folks who are finally starting to understand why their brains have always done things a little differently. If you're tired of trying to fix yourself and ready to embrace your weird and wonderful brain, you're in the right place. I also write a weekly newsletter called Nerd Notes, where I share deeper insights, practical tools, and reflections to help make your weirdness feel like home. The link to sign up is in the show notes. In this episode, I'm talking about a phrase many of us have heard many times, and its emotional impact. My guess is you've had someone in your life tell you you're too much in some way. Now, they may not always say the words too much because those words have kind of got a bit of a reputation now. But they might say something like you're too emotional, you're too enthusiastic, you're too talkative, too intense, even maybe too needy or too honest. These are all sort of typical things that people say often to people who are late diagnosed, because we don't realize when we're late diagnosed that we're kind of in the grip of our neurodivergence in some ways. But for people with ADHD in particular, like emotional intensity is a baseline. Like we tend to feel deeply, very deeply, and very intensely. And so that can come out as a lot of these too much phrases. Our excitement shows up very somatically, very much in our physical, like, you want to jump up and like share and talk about the things you're really excited about. And like, I can even have a good bite of a meal and I will do a little happy dance in my chair, which I always thought was just kind of small and nobody really noticed until somebody pointed out to me that I did it. And I knew I was doing it, but like, I can't help myself sometimes. And sometimes our tendency toward impulsivity can mean we overshare. Like the scenario at the beginning of this episode was about a new friendship where you might be excited about, connecting with this person about what you have in common, and that your impulsivity can take over and you might sort of lead into more sensitive topics sooner than you maybe should while you're fostering a new connection. On top of all of this, we have rejection sensitivity, which turns small little signals into blazing and blaring alarm bells. None of this is a failure in your personality in any way. This is just how your nervous system is wired. Rejection sensitivity can amplify our fear. So you might have a small amount of concern or fear about something, but if you experience rejection sensitivity dysphoria, it will magnify any kind of ambiguity in a relationship. So if someone doesn't reply to a message, or if someone's tone feels slightly off, if they didn't laugh enthusiastically at a joke you told, all of that gets magnified, and the stories we tell ourselves about that experience are really bigger than probably the relational truth of it. That is one piece that kind of fits in here from rejection sensitivity. It also makes you think that the outcomes of those small things are catastrophic, where you've ruined something, or I've pushed them away, or I did get in too intense or too excited, or I showed too much of my authentic or genuine self too soon. And, they're not going to want to be my friend anymore. Are these catastrophic sort of conclusions that you take those little stories and make them into these big narratives that don't really exist. And then all of this triggers inside of us this deep sense of shame, which a lot of people who are late diagnosed experience a lot of shame around their neurodivergence because they've been trying to hide it for so long and they knew something was wrong but didn't know what it was that was wrong. So that shame gets triggered, and then you start feeling like you're the problem with narratives like, I'm exhausting and nobody wants to be around me, and why would anybody want someone who behaves like I do, who gets so excited about the silly things that I get excited about? Often, the fear of being too much is really just a baseline fear of being rejected for being visible, for being seen and showing your authentic self. A lot of this comes out of our experiences as children, right? A lot of this comes from how we grew up, being corrected a lot, being told to calm down, being told we're dramatic, that learning how to mask those deep emotions, keeping them down, or trying to mask your emotions in a way that they're more palatable for people around you and more palatable for yourself as well. You're often rewarded for that. We're rewarded for masking big emotions. And then that reward ends up wanting you to shrink even more, to hide more of yourself because you were rewarded for doing so. If we're being told as we're growing up that something's not quite right about us and not quite right about our responses and they're inconvenient, we learn that being seen is dangerous. And that's really the crux of the point here is if you want to be close, you generally need to be seen in order to be close. And at the same time, we're carrying all of this baggage from being late diagnosed where we worry if somebody really sees us, they're going to ghost us or not want to be friends or not want to be in a relationship because they're going to see how we're too much. And so you kind of go through this wanting to be seen and not feeling like it's viable to be seen at all. Because who would want to see our authentic selves that have maybe some childlike wonder or deep enthusiastic excitement about our special interests? For a long time with romantic partners, I would hide some of my interests, like some of the things I really liked, because I felt like they were silly or they made me seem immature or made me seem, frivolous. And I wanted to be very serious. It was very important to me to be very serious, especially when I was younger. A former partner of mine very much thought that listening to NPR was just the baseline. Everybody should be listening to NPR all the time. So I hid for a long time from this partner that I would listen to the pop music radio station on the way to work in the morning because I couldn't handle the news before I went to work. I needed the light easing into morning, easing into going to work that the pop music gave me. I would sing, and now I know that the singing helped me regulate my nervous system. I didn't really know that at the time. I know that now, but I hid all of that because I was so afraid of him rejecting me because I liked listening to pop music on the way to work instead of the news. And I did that for years and years. And now I'm like, that's ridiculous because just because I like listening to pop music doesn't mean I'm not serious of a person or somebody who shouldn't be taken seriously or too much or whatever. But he really hated it. He hated that I wouldn't take the time to be in the car to better improve my mind. What ends up happening with this trying to fight off, because that was me trying to fight off the rejection sensitivity, is you create this cycle where you want to feel connected, you get excited and you're vulnerable and you share all of this stuff. And then you panic afterward because you're so afraid of really being seen and you want to withdraw or you want to over explain or you want to play down your enthusiasm after you've already expressed it. So in essence, you shame yourself. Before they could maybe even respond, they might not even be having the response you think that they're having, but you shame yourself. and you overcompensate for it and either, apologize profusely, or you shut down and don't want to say anything, and then you don't want to share anything. It's a combination of rejection sensitivity, attachment anxiety, and masking fatigue. It all just makes this messy thing that makes those of us who have always felt like we're too much really feel like we're probably too much. So what are some practical tools? What are some things we can do about this? So I have said several times in this about the story you have told yourself, right? We love stories. Humans love stories. Stories give us context. Stories give our life meaning. Stories are so important. The stories you tell yourself in your head about the interactions you're having with your friends and your families and your partners are made up stories that you have made up for yourself. You may be basing them on some evidence. You may think you know exactly what it means, but the truth is you don't. You are just making up a story based on past experience, perhaps, but also festering in this rejection sensitivity and anxiety and attachment soup. All of these things are kind of mixed in together. So ask yourself, what evidence am I actually basing this on? Try to step back from it a little. And then, is this a feeling that I'm having about this, or is there a fact? Is there evidence of distance of what these XYZ things mean? Try to step yourself back a little bit about that. Give yourself some grace that your stories may not be the reality of the situation. Normalize your intensity. It is perfectly fine to be emotionally intense and to be a sensitive person. Now, I'm going to say that again because I need to hear it. Normalize your intensity. It is perfectly normal to be an intense person, and it is perfectly normal to be a sensitive person. There's nothing wrong with either of those things. When you're talking about yourself, or you're talking with people who you've had this experience with, or you have these fears with your relationship with them, think about phrasing it in terms of, instead of being too much, that maybe your needs don't match. You're maybe not too much. You just might be mismatched with the people who you are in relationships with. They may not be able to match your intensity, and there's nothing wrong with that. Try to delay erasing yourself. So instead of apologizing, I'm sorry, I know I talk too much, try something more like, let me know if that was a lot. I get excited and my ideas run away with me. Something like that. Let me know if that was a lot is a really great phrase. Or let me know if I'm sharing too much, or let me know if you want to change the subject, if you want to talk about something else, or to stop and ask a question. Hey, is this interesting to you? Hey, is this new information? Am I telling you stuff you already know? Because maybe they have the same special interest you do and you just don't know because you've been talking about your information. And another way to have a practical way of handling this is with a nervous system reset. Drink some cold water, go for a walk, do some somatic grounding. If you can, get outside, put your feet in the grass. If you are handling this in digital interactions, put maybe a buffer in before you respond to some text messages, especially if you're feeling this kind of emotional trigger about it. The basic rule here would be regulate yourself first and then work on the relationship second. Don't try to work on building a solid foundation while you're dysregulated. Because for a lot of us, sometimes the fear of being too much doesn't just make us anxious. It makes us want to be close and also panic about that closeness at the same time. Your intensity is not a flaw. It's a feature of who you are. The goal here isn't to become less of anything. It's not to become less sensitive. It's not to become less intense. It's to become regulated enough to stay present when your body wants to melt away and disappear, to stay connected when shame starts whispering that you've crossed a line, and to not shrink when someone sees the real you, because I assure you, your genuine and authentic self is a thing of beauty. You don't have to dim yourself to be worthy of closeness and connection. You may just need some support learning how to hold your own intensity and not turn it against yourself. If you have resonated with this episode, please see the link in the show description. Sign up for a clarity call. I am taking clients for my Nerd Out deep dive session where we get into 1 or 2 pain points that might be resonating in your life right now and see how we can untangle them.